Wow, the scenery here is just crazy. It's drizzling, it's foggy, there are these gothic buildings, it's an extinct volcano. It's just like there are some prisoners sitting down here. This tower is 60 meters tall. It's not just a construction, it's a monument to Sir Walter Scott. This beautiful hill which overlooks the whole city. And you can just show with your finger where you need to go. No people in Scottish kilts and no bagpipers here in the streets. For you to imagine the atmosphere of Edinburgh, I'll tell you the story of creating the famous book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by Frank Baum. Its story started in the late 19th century. American writer Lyman Frank Baum visited Edinburgh during his stay in the UK. He stayed at the hotel located at the Royal Mile. Legend has it that the view of Edinburgh Castle from his hotel room was the inspiration for the book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. This story shows how Edinburgh, with its historical atmosphere and unique landscapes, inspires people to create magnificent works of art. The city has always been an inspiration for writers including Sir Walter Scott, Robert Louis Stevenson, and Joanne Rowling. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was published in 1900. Alexander Volkov's book The Wizard of the Emerald City is widely known in Russia. It was published almost 40 years later and is basically the re-narration of the original novel. It is not the only story I'm going to tell you today. There will be the Anglo-Saxons and Celts and castles and secrets of Scottish kilts. But now let's take a walk around Edinburgh. I'm now in Newcastle. Newcastle is in the northern England and is close to Scotland. A couple of hours and you're in Edinburgh. I've already bought the tickets to Edinburgh. One-way ticket costs £20, a very reasonable price. I also booked a simple and a small hotel room just for £40, also a good price. I've arrived in Edinburgh and the scenery here is just crazy. Fields, sheep are grazing, farms, small towns, all this within an hour and a half. Railway stations here are so cool. Every one of them looks like a Harry Potter movie location. By the way, platform 9 3/4 is on King's Cross railway station. They are alike. The railway stations in Edinburgh and York, Manchester, even in Newcastle.
Yes, and I feel like
You go out of the railway station, you're in Great Britain, which we're accustomed to think of as foggy Albion. I've just left the station and this name suits the atmosphere here. It's drizzling, it's foggy, there are these gothic buildings. ask, where is it foggier, in London or Edinburgh? The term foggy Albion is what comes to mind there. It's a poetic name for Britain. It highlights the specificity of British weather and frequent fogs, especially in littoral zones. Check out my vlogs from Newcastle, Belfast. The weather there is always gloomy. Then why is it Albion? There are several theories. The first one suggests that Albion comes from Latin albus, which means white. This might be reference for the white cliffs of Dover on the southeast coast of England, which is one of the most prominent natural landmarks for the ones arriving by sea. What is the climate in Edinburgh? And how can we compare it with London? London is historically associated with the fog. The reason is probably smog and air pollution from the use of coal in the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. The climate in Edinburgh is more humid and cold. Edinburgh is north from England, and winter can be colder and windier here, and summer can be colder compared to London. London is located in southeast England. Its climate is warmer, winter and summer are milder here. Rainy days are typical for both cities, but Edinburgh has more frequent rains and snow in winter. Wow, when you arrive to this castle and see this view, it's exceptional, stunning, breathtaking, to put it mildly. It stands on a cliff which is 130 meters tall. So you can imagine how high the castle on this cliff is. I was curious what this cliff is. It's an extinct volcano. It is cool that there is a parking garage next to the castle, and it's underground. I checked it out. The parking garage has 7 floors, so they put the 7th floor parking underground, and that's how you do it, guys. That's reasonable. Edinburgh is known as a city of castles. The most famous castle is surely Edinburgh Castle. Apart from it, there are some other castles in Edinburgh and its nearby areas, including Craigmillier Castle and Lauriston Castle. But how many castles are there? Exact number depends on which buildings are considered castles. Because Edinburgh and its nearby areas are rich with historical buildings and ruins, there seems to be 15 castles you can see in Edinburgh. Around 2,000 castles are situated all over Scotland. Edinburgh Castle is a central historical monument. Of course, here one can get acquainted with the history of conflict between England and Scotland, from crown jewels to Stone of Destiny. What's interesting is that it's a giant rock weighing 150 kilograms upon which Scottish and English monarchs were traditionally crowned. Last year it was packed and sent to London for the coronation of King Charles III. Not so far from Edinburgh is Stirling, the former capital of Scotland. By the way, Edinburgh was not originally the capital of Scotland. It was not even a part of Scotland. It was a fortress of a Celtic tribe. Back then, Edinburgh was called Din Iden. From the old Celtic Din means fort. Iden is the name of the place. Edinburgh officially became the capital of Scotland only in 1437, after the death of King James I. This choice was primarily due to location, Edinburgh's status of a large trading centre, and it being capable of protecting the crown. I'm walking down this narrow street and it feels like the Middle Ages here. Take a look. Something stripping. It's so damp here. It's like, there are some prisoners down here. The distance between these two walls is about 1.5 meters. Do you know what the street is? It is just an offshoot, a passage between the houses from the street, which is called Cockburn Street. It's one of the main streets with restaurants, cafes, bars, some souvenir shops. It runs from the railway station and leads straight to the Royal Mile. The old town with its Gothic buildings takes you into the medieval world. Nearby is the elegant new town of Edinburgh, with wide avenues and squares. Princess Street with chain stores, George Street with luxury boutiques, bars, hotels, and cozy lounges. But our destination is the Royal Mile. It's a unique street with historic significance and special ambience. It has existed since the Middle Ages, and even then the street was a main street of Edinburgh. It stretches from Edinburgh Castle to the Palace of Holyrood House, official residence of British monarchs. There are plenty of historical buildings, museums, churches, shops and restaurants. St. Margaret's Chapel, Scottish Parliament, St. Giles Cathedral. Its name, Royal Mile, comes from the length of the road, which has almost the same length as the Scottish one, around 1,814 meters. You should definitely take a walk through Glass Market and Victoria Street. Feel the evening atmosphere of the city and have a dinner in one of the traditional Scottish pubs. I guess there is no need to tell you what people drink here. Let's go back to St. Giles Cathedral. Many landmark events happened here during its history. In 1559, John Knox got inspired by sermons at this cathedral and became the leader of the Scottish Reformation. And it was crucial for the spread of Protestantism in Scotland. In 1638, the National Covenant was signed at the cathedral. It's a document that determined the course of the Scottish Church and politics for years to come. It was a key event of Scottish history, but it has led to the Wars of the Three Kingdoms. The cathedral may not have survived until our days because it was on the decline. But in the 19th century, under the direction of an architect, William Chambers, the cathedral had great restoration which saved it and gave it a modern look. I paid over £34 for this hotel room with breakfast. Really cool room, new, neat, comfortable, as for me. There are a lot of goodies too. Yes, it's not very big, but it has everything you need. Check this out. There is a big plasma TV. You can hang your clothes here and put your suitcase here if you want. Huge amount of different outlets, like everywhere. And it's really necessary with my equipment. Here's the camera charger, there's another one. The view is like that. Window is small, but floor to ceiling. I really like these things. We got several types of lighting. This is for bathroom only, you see it's dim here now. This one is medium, so this one's here for reading. Very convenient as well. Right here is an air conditioner. You can turn it on and off using these arrows. The story of Bobby, a small Skye Terrier whose loyalty to his owner inspired both locals and visitors. The story began in 1850s when John Gray, a night watchman from Edinburgh, died from tuberculosis and was buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard. His faithful dog, Bobby, refused to leave the grave of his owner. Bobby spent 14 years next to the grave. After Bobby's death, his story became widely known, and in his honor was installed a monument at the entrance to the kirkyard. The story of Bobby became the inspiration for books, movies, and different cultural interpretations, emphasizing the loyalty and love between humans and dogs. If you go to Edinburgh, be sure to visit a famous pub nearby, Greyfriars Bobby's Bar, founded in 1873. And I think dogs are allowed here. If you enjoy reading books and you're in Edinburgh, then come here to the National Library of Scotland. It's kind of like the Russian State Library in Moscow. And sorry for the wind. Many famous people lived and worked in Edinburgh. Sir Walter Scott, one of the greatest Scottish writers and poets, author of Ivanhoe and Rob Roy. If you like Scottish history and landscapes, you should read his novels and poems. Robert Louis Stevenson, Treasure Island, one of my favorite books. Stevenson was born and spent his youth in Edinburgh. J.K. Rowling, author of the novels about Harry Potter, most of her books were written here in Edinburgh. David Hume, one of the greatest Enlightenment philosophers, famous for his works on philosophy, economics, and history, spent many years of his life in Edinburgh. Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes. Conan Doyle was born in Edinburgh and studied at the University of Edinburgh Medical School. There is an entire episode about Conan Doyle on our channel. Link to the video is in the description. Alexander Graham Bell, inventor of the telephone, a significant figure in telecommunication development, a founder of the American Telephone and Telegraph Company. If you've been to the US, you might have bought phones or SIM cards and AT&T. Well, imagine that Bell founded this company back in the 19th century. James Clerk Maxwell, physicist. His theories in electromagnetism had a great influence on modern physics. What an interesting fact, all those people studied and some worked at the University of Edinburgh. Except J.K. Rowling, she studied in England. That's how I brought you to the University of Edinburgh, literally and figuratively. Behind me is the medical school, one of the oldest buildings of the university. And there is also its central campus. The university consists of a lot of buildings, as expected from one of the most prestigious and large universities in Scotland and the whole world. Around 35,000 students study here, but it's obviously extremely difficult to get here. Why am I even telling you about the University of Edinburgh in this travel video? Because first of all, this university has had an incredible impact on the development of Edinburgh, its culture, its history and science. If you're not in a study, just look at these majestic university buildings. Feel this atmosphere. I've been working in international education for many years, visited 100 educational institutions around the world. I publish my reviews on educational institutions on this channel. Every year, our company helps several thousands of students enter schools and universities around the world. We also organize children's camps with our camp counselors. This year, we'll have camps in South Korea, Thailand, Turkey, England, and Switzerland. And the University of Edinburgh is one of the oldest and top-tier universities in the world. When was it founded? In 1582. Well, and it's not even the oldest educational institution in Scotland. If you'd like to know more about universities in Scotland, tell me in the comments and I'll make one more episode about them if you're interested. King of Scotland, James VI signed a university charter. Residents of Edinburgh wanted to study in their own universities, similar to ones in Aberdeen and Glasgow. It was a fourth university founded in Scotland. It has been constantly developing ever since and became one of the leading research centers in the world. Also, if you want to understand the University of Edinburgh, I recommend you visit the Old College, a giant monumental building that will, without a doubt, impress you. The construction of this building began in 1789 under the supervision of the famous architect Robert Adam. The initial construction was interrupted, as often happens, due to lack of funds. The construction was completed only many years later. Today, the Old College contains administration offices and the law school. McEwen Hall, amazing hall for ceremonies designed by renowned architect Robert Rowand Anderson. Interestingly, it was named after a brewer and philanthropist William McEwen, who financed the construction. Rich interiors, impressive dome, everything that we love about universities but often cannot find. George Square, the principal square of the campus. Many academic and administrative buildings are located here. In 1960s, George Square became the heart of student life, and once from 1766, it was a popular residential district for wealthy citizens of Edinburgh. Let's also touch on graduates of the University of Edinburgh. This is where one famous naturalist attended the lectures, Charles Darwin. And for 1500 years, the University of Edinburgh continues to be one of the leading universities in the world. We can see this tower right here. What is this tower? This tower is 60 meters tall. It's not just a construction, it's a monument to Sir Walter Scott. The monument depicts 64 characters from his novels. If you climb 287 steps, you'll reach the platform, which gives you a panoramic view of the city. This monument has been standing there for 180 years. From there, you can immediately get to the Scottish National Gallery, that is right in front of this monument. If you want to know more about Scotland's history, art and culture, you should set aside a day to visit the Scottish National Gallery. I'd say it's a Scottish version of the National Gallery in London in Trafalgar Square. And if visiting the gallery is still not enough for you, go to the National Museum of Scotland. There are even more history, nature and technology. If you're only planning to visit Scotland and Edinburgh, in pictures you'd probably see a beautiful hill overlooking the whole city. Well, do not flatter yourself, so this is the hill, and here's the city view. There is also a famous hill here, Author's Seat, and it's a story time. There are legends according to which the hill is related to King Arthur and his knights. Although there is no evidence to this connection, the name's Author's Seat emphasizes the historical context. 350 million years ago it was a volcano. The height of this volcano hill is 251 meters above sea level. And what were the hills used for before everything there was built? Firstly, these hills were fortified for defense. Secondly, there were places for worship and pagan rituals. And now it's a place to enjoy the view and take photos. But we're on another hill so far. Calton Hill, National Monument of Scotland. Built at the beginning of the 19th century, this monument was intended to commemorate soldiers killed in the Napoleonic Wars, but it was never completed. Because of its unfinished state, it's often called Scotland's disgrace. I personally haven't heard that from the locals, and for me it's beautiful and mysterious. The monument's exterior resembles Parthenon in Athens, and this is one of the reasons why people call Edinburgh Athens of the North. An old observatory is located here, the Nelson Monument, a commemorative tower in honor of Vice Admiral Horatio Nelson. You can also climb to the top for an overview of the surroundings. This tower is a reminder of the Nelsons' victory in the Battle of Trafalgar. The Dougal Stewart Monument, dedicated to the Scottish philosopher and professor at the University of Edinburgh. If you happen to be on this hill on the 1st of May and see something burning, don't get scared. This is Beltane Fire Festival, a festival of fire and one of the cultural events dating back to the ancient Celts. This hill is a must-see place in better weather, of course, when it's sunny and clear. And this is the main place you should go, because this hill overlooks the entire city. And you can just show with your finger where you need to go. How to get here? Very simple. If you arrive by train, it'll take you 5 minutes. About 3 minutes to get to the hill, and 3 minutes to climb the stairs. Celts have greatly influenced history, culture and language of Scotland. Celtic culture is reflected in music, dance, language and folk festivals. For example, such musical instrument as a bagpipe and Scottish traditional dance. Another important part of the cultural heritage is Celtic holidays, for example Samhain. It is a precursor of the modern Halloween. Celtic language is still taught and spoken in some parts of Scotland. Celts are actually not just one tribe but with a leader. They live basically everywhere, in the British Isles, on the continent, for instance modern France, Ireland, the same, modern England, of course. Celtic tribes are living their lives and then everything changes. Everyone starts to mix with each other. What happened? Who came here? Romans. What do Romans call Celts living on the territory of France? Gauls. What about the Celts living in particular parts of the British Isles? What were they called? Britons. Named after the British Isles. But who lived in Scotland? I mean on the territory of modern Scotland. The same Celtic tribes. What are they called? They're called Picts. Why? They were pagans and tattooed themselves. In fact, hence their name. The Latin word pictus means painted. We all know the word picture, and these words are connected. I found a theory that Britons and Picts are the same thing, and only the pronunciation and different. What happens next? The Roman Empire expands. A fine young man sits in a fort with a sea view in his cool helmet and sees the crowd of wild barbarians running at him. That is how Angles and Saxons appeared in the British Isles. Saxons, it derives from Saxony. It is now Dresden and Leipzig. Angles were on the territory of modern Denmark. In a word, when one comes, others leave. So the modern name of England comes from the Angles. Anglo-Saxons inhabit the territory which is now modern England. What do Britons live in there do? They need to get out of here. Where do they go? To the mainland. And there, on the territory of modern France, they form Brittany. This region is now in the northwest of France. Eventually, Britons stay only on the territory of modern Wales, and Picts stay on the territory of modern Scotland. But the question is, why do we call it Scotland, the land of Scots? This was the name of Celtic tribes which migrated from Ireland to Scotland. After the Romans had left, they established the Kingdom of Dalriada. Later, in 843, King of Dalriada, Kenneth MacAlpin, unites the Picts with his kingdom. And basically that's how we got Scotland. Kenneth MacAlpin is traditionally considered the founder of Scotland. The word Mac, by the way, is not just McDonald's, it means son of. MacAlpin, son of Alpin. As we can see from this story, it was the Celtic tribes who played the key role in political structure of Scotland. The merging of these tribes into one kingdom helped lay the foundations for the modern Scotland state. And this is why they feuded with the Anglo-Saxons, because they invaded the territory of Celts, albeit the territory of the warring tribes. But here's a little trick. Actually, there were sneaky ones among Celtic tribes, which offered Anglo-Saxons to become allies, like, folks, come here. Help us, please, to beat them up, and so, well, rule together. But sly Anglo-Saxons come and help, and then they take over everything, like this. I've been in Edinburgh for 2 days already, and there is no people in Scottish kilts, no bagpipers in the streets. Honestly, I haven't seen anyone with whiskey bottles either, and what can I say? I think it's similar to these associations, when I'm Russian means beer, Balalaika, and vodka. There are stereotypes about Russians and about Scots as well, but I really haven't seen all this at all. Yeah, there are whiskey stores, but these liquor stores are everywhere. In every country, you just come in and buy. This is exactly the same thing. Kilt is one of the most recognized traditional garments around the world. Firstly, because these skirts are worn by men. The history of the kilt began in the 16th century. There were earlier forms of the kilts as well, but they looked like a long woolen cloth on which a man wrapped around the body and fastened on the shoulder. Modern kilt, what we all know, appeared in the 18th century. Kilts are not often worn in daily life. They are popular among those who want to show their national pride, and the kilt is worn on official ceremonies, weddings, festivals, and national events. What are kilts made from? Usually from a plaid festive cloth called tartan. Every tartan has a unique pattern and colors that can indicate which clan, family, or region you belong to. What does kilt mean for Scots? Symbol of identity and pride. Family's history represented in tartan, but the kilt's history had dark times. After the Jacobite Rising of 1745, a British government prohibited the wearing of kilts in order to suppress the Scottish culture. The ban was lifted after 37 years, and kilt has become an even more powerful symbol of national identity ever since. Guys, so this is the end of the first part about Edinburgh. I hope it was interesting for you. In the next episode about this beautiful and unique city, I'll tell you some new information about it. So, subscribe and like this video if you enjoyed it. Write a comment about what you'd like to know about Britain. In the next episode, you'll see a whole new story and journey. I promise, it'll be interesting.